No, tolto. L'avevo aumentato, sì. Adesso deve essere a posto. Sì.
Okay, let's start. Let's talk about the NethServer UI and UX. Okay, what are the moving parts? We have the core UI. There is, for instance, the login page, the dashboard page, menus, toolbars, and stuff. We have modules UI. Modules are applications, and at HTML level, they are mounted inside an iframe in the core UI. Okay, and both the core UI and the applications UI imports and use two UI libraries: Carbon Components Library and NSA UI lib. We'll talk about them in a moment. Main technologies we have used are Vue.js 2, Carbon Design System 10 for the design and the style, and we use the Storybook for exploring and testing library components. Okay, let's start with the core UI. So we have said what it is, what it contains, shell, software center, everything. Every component and page that there is not an external application is the core, belongs to the core. Inside the core UI project, we have the Storybook. Fine, okay. And we'll talk about this later. And here we have the source code of the UI, which is the core GitHub repository inside the core UI directory. Very simple. Some screenshots. This is a cluster status page, the landing page. This is the core menu. And on the top right corner, we have some buttons like global search, notifications drawer, app drawer, and account menu. A few words on the modules UI. So as you probably already know, NSA module is any external application like Nextcloud, Mail, Mattermost, and so on. We have, depending on the context, we might refer to a specific application or application instance, okay? Because you probably already know that admins can install multiple app instances inside the cluster. So you can have multiple instances of Nextcloud and so on. Every application has a distinct code base. Those developed by NetServer are inside the NethServer organization, and they all start with NSA prefix. The UI code is inside the UI directory of the module. And to open to access an application, you can use the app drawer or the global search. So here we have the app drawer expanded. On this cluster, we have installed two instances of DokuWiki and an instance of Nginx web server. Okay, what happens when you open a module? The core side menu, which is the darkest one, collapses, and you have access to the application menu. Here is the instance name to have some context where you are at the moment. So this is the interface of DokuWiki 1. The status page is a standard page where you have information about the module. So app instance, what's the installation node, what's the backup state, logs, and so on. Okay. A few words about NSA UI lib. If you recall, the diagram at the beginning is one of the two UI libraries that we are using. This is a collection of reusable components that we have developed. So it's buttons, text input, card, toast notification, and so on. And inside the code, you recognize them because they all start with NS prefix, like NethServer, of course. Inside the library, there are, in addition, Vue.js mixin, which are utility functions. And the library is deployed as a standard npm package. This is the full name, and this is the source repository. What about the storybook? We have said that it's a tool to explore and test single UI components. For technical reasons, the storybook, which is a web app, is not inside the library, but is inside the core repository. And to launch it on your workstation, you just can access the core UI directory inside the core, of course, and launch yarn storybook command. Here we have a screenshot. This is the interface of storybook. You have a side menu with all the components inside the library. You have a preview panel and a panel with component controls where you can actually change and tweak component parameters to configure it, and the preview will update accordingly. So this is a useful way to test combinations of configurations of every component. You can just ensure that this is a toast notification component. What happens, I want to quickly test an error notification. I just change the kind to error, and I expect that, for instance, the icon will change. And so it's a very quick way to give different parameters to our UI components to ensure that they work as you might expect. Okay, the other library is a Carbon components library. Carbon is the design system that we used. Carbon provides a Vue2 component library, and you recognize them inside the code because they have the CV prefix. Carbon library 2 has his own storybook. It's publicly available, and this is the URL. And this is a screenshot. It's similar to the previous one. It has a slightly different theme, but you still have the component list on the left. The preview, this is a button. This is a CV button, and the knobs are the controls. Similar, different names, but same stuff. So I can test quickly change the kind of this button that currently is primary. If I change to secondary, it will probably change color and so on. I can test disable state, set an icon. So, okay, why do we have two libraries? What's the relation between them? We have developed NSA UI lib to extend and add features to Carbon components. So you will probably realize that there are some components like button that have a version inside our library, NSA UI lib, and the Carbon library. So which one should you use? The rule is very simple. You should always use the NSA UI lib components if they are available. So you will always stick with NS button since it's available. Why? Because we have taken CV button and we just added features to it. We made it more extensible, more configurable, and so if you have to choose, always choose the NS version of every component if it's available. Some components are not available inside the NS UI lib, and you can use the CV version. It's okay. So you can use Carbon components for everything that is not included inside NSA UI lib. Okay, a few words on user experience. We try to make NethServer 8 look good on every kind of screen and device. So you should be able to use it on your Full HD laptop or in your smartphone. Carbon design system has the concept of grid. You have some documentation here that is just a way to organize your page content in columns and rows and to easily change the layout according to the screen size. a very quick rule of thumb to implement responsive design is to try to organize your page content in narrow elements that doesn't have too many columns. So this is an example of the page of DokuWiki instances installed on our cluster. We have a list of instances, but every instance is displayed as a wide component with many columns. What happens if your screen gets smaller? You have to handle the display of this of the additional columns because they just don't fit. So an easier version to to lay out this page might be this. You just think of narrow elements, cards. We just have one column but many rows if necessary. And what happens if your screen gets narrower, like on your tablet or on your smartphone? Simply, instead of having 2 or more cards on every row, you just have 1 or 2. So it's easier to implement this kind of layout. So narrow elements with possibly many rows if you need them. Another important UX rule is to always give users feedback. They always should be aware of what's happening. So they should be aware when the page is loading, and in this case, a very useful pattern used almost everywhere. You can think about YouTube homepage while it's loading previews, or your Facebook feed while it's loading the content. You will probably have an animated placeholder, usually gray and animated, while loading data. So when the actual content will appear, the layout won't change too much. Loaders. What happens when anytime the user clicks a button and there's some computation behind it? It shouldn't happen that the user clicks a button and nothing happens for even for just a second. Let's show a loader. I received your request and I am computing now, so I show you a little loader inside the button, for instance. So feedback while loading data, while serving user requests, and notifications. These are a good example for when something went wrong. For instance, while loading data, we got a backend error. We need to show them on the screen, or a long-running task. A long-running task that at some point fails, but the moment when it fails, maybe the user has already changed the page, is somewhere else. So about this, we can see an example of skeleton. Now this is an image, it's not animated, of course. This is the loading of the cluster status page. We have 4 cards and they are loading data for them. So when the content will appear, the card height won't change too much. About errors, always try to show errors inside the specific place of the page where it belongs. Not over the top of the page, for instance, but if this is just a simple example, I just disconnected the internet, so everything has failed. But if this specific card gets an error while loading data, I would just show the error here. This is because here is where it belongs. When you don't have a specific place on the page where to show your error, those notifications are okay, and they're okay too for long-running tasks. And skipped some slides. About development, feel free to ask questions if you want, but I won't dig on it because we have a hopefully exhaustive developer manual that talks about it. And of course, you will have to install NethServer 8 on a development machine, configure your environment to call the backend. If you have a local server, you will probably need to disable cost check. All the details are here. And we recently give the developer a way to develop inside a container instead of your workstation. This way you will always have the right version of the tools, so the right version of Node and so on. For Module UI, almost same stuff. You will have an external an additional step to sync the sources from your workstation to your NSA machine, because in this way, because of the iframe, you won't have a local server, but everything is explained here, so I won't dig on it now. If you want to build your module for NethServer 8, we have a good starting point that is called NSA Kickstart. You can find it here, and it provides a basic skeleton of the UI with these standard pages, status, settings, and about, and some basic actions that you can extend and implement. And that's it.
I have a question. How many time to build the UI you did to imagine, to write all this?
How many time we spend to develop it?
Develop, to conceive the NS8 UI, user interface.
Well, we tried to not invent anything from scratch, but we started from the Carbon documentation and design principles, and we just made the changes when necessary. So we try to stick on it because we are sure that IBM people spend some time about designing it. But yeah, that's it. I cannot say an amount of time, but we built it step by step following this principle.
Thank you.
Okay.